and welcome to episode number 22 of the Star Bros podcast. I'm joined here with my bro host, Ben Skywalker.
And I'm joined, as always, by my bro host, Jan Solo.
And we're excited to be talking about a bunch of different things with you tonight. May the 4th is coming up.
Yeah, Star Wars Day.
Star Wars Day, one of the most sacred days on the Star Wars calendar, and it's right around the corner.
One of the most sacred days on the Gregorian calendar.
On all calendars.
All calendars.
Across the galaxy.
Even the Hebrew calendar, whichever calendar you follow.
You pick one, it's on there, it's sacred.
The most. Okay, that's very blasphemous in some... even in my realm, so I should back that.
No offense.
Exactly.
We're just excited, as you can tell.
Exactly.
But how are you, dude? I'm very happy to have you here. I'm very happy to be talking about what we're going to be talking about tonight. But most importantly, how are you doing?
I'm good. Busy as always, though.
Okay.
Ready for life to maybe slow down a little bit. But
does it ever?
It never really does. Only on days like today where we sit down and talk Star Wars does it slow down for just a little bit, and then it picks right back up when
That's a good point. It is something that I look forward to, and then it's sort of like hitting the pause button on a lot of the other things in life.
So one of the things, listeners, that Jan and I really like to do, at least during the weekdays, we don't really do it on the weekend. I think we give ourselves a little bit of a break, but we like to do our 3 gratitudes, and we kind of text each other in the morning when we're ready and say, here are the 3 things that I'm grateful for today. And it seems like every time we go to record, it's on both of our gratitude lists. Like, I'm so grateful that it's time to record. And that's kind of how I feel today. I was really grateful to have even prepared for this episode because we're going to be talking about words of wisdom in Star Wars, the wisdom that is embedded in the Star Wars philosophy, mythology, whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of it. And so as I was studying this, I was taken away by how much there really is. And, I'll say how grateful I am for the wisdom in it, because it's fun, obviously, to see all the action on the screen and the lightsabers, the blasters, the dark side, light side, all that stuff, the war side of it. But just to learn from the wisdom is a lot of fun too. That's the stuff that really keeps me anchored to it.
Yeah, and I think that there's stuff that is like deeply human about Star Wars that really resonates with people. And I think some of it is like the lessons and the wisdom that are just transcendent. Like, it doesn't matter that they're in a galaxy far, far away a long, long time ago. It's stuff that hits home for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I was reading a book to prepare for this. What's it called here? It's sitting right here in my lap, and I got to take a look at the cover. It was a gift that I received called The World According to Star Wars by Cass Sunstein. And this is somebody who's a professor and I think a diplomat, and they talk about how basically Star Wars brings people together. Like, I think what the gist that I got from the opening chapter here was that Star Wars is such a deeply personal thing that there's a lot of people out there who are friends of yours that you just have not met yet. And they're all over the world. And you could run into a new Star Wars friend in India, Japan, places where we have a lot of listeners, like the UK and Canada, but also, nowadays in China, wherever you go, there are Star Wars fans. And as soon as you make that connection, there's, you're friends without further introduction, as Mark Twain would say.
Yeah. I meet people all the time. It's funny too, because you meet some people, especially nowadays, where you go, oh, you're a Star Wars fan too? And then there's another follow-up question, which is usually, okay, but what kind of Star Wars fan are you? Because there's so many different kinds.
Right.
Which is totally fine. Like, you have those that love certain parts of it and hate certain parts of it, or love it all or hate it all. Like, there's just so many different kinds. So you always have to follow up with that question, I found, because if I start just making an assumption that you're the same kind of fan that I am, like halfway through you got to pause and be like, wait. Are we on the same page here?
Yeah, that's a good
Which
point.
Is always fun, but
you can always find some common ground where it's like,
always,
all right, we both love this.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, there's something about it you love if you're considering yourself a fan. So you find that thing and you focus on it and you say, okay, most of the time we all love the originals and we talk a lot about that. Some of it is we love Last Jedi and we talk about that. Right? So, because there are some people who
that one not
crazy.
As much though.
What's that?
That one not as much.
It's out there enough to where I think you'll find it, right? But
you can definitely find it. I mean, I think we are both the Last Jedi apologists to a certain degree. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
Never gotten tired of it. I feel like I keep discovering new things about it. But if you bring it up in conversation with a stranger, you could get a bad reaction. But then you move on. You find something else that is common ground for the both of you.
Yeah. And even then, like, I like to listen to why they don't love it so that I can understand it better. Like, I think trying to reach a place of understanding with why it's not your favorite thing in the world, what it is you don't love about it, is really cathartic. It's really good for building good, solid relationships with people.
Yeah.
Other fans that profess in other ways. But whoa, we're going all over the place. How are you doing, man?
I'm great. If you don't mind, I'd like to play a game with you.
You're gonna mess with my mind, aren't you?
Maybe. So I need to use my phone. Let me pull it up here. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to think of a Star Wars character. Let me know when you have one in mind.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm like,
and also don't go like super deep cut. Don't be like that one gonk droid that you see in the background.
Don't go super deep cut. So kind of middle to main character.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do like a middle character. Don't do a main character.
I got mine.
You got yours? Okay. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. The responses that you can give are either yes, no, or don't know.
Okay.
Okay. So that part should be pretty straightforward. But I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I think I'm going to be able to guess it. Ready?
Okay.
Is your character female?
Yes.
Has your character ever really existed? I think we can say no.
No. None of them have, right?
Right. Does your character first appear in a video game?
No.
Okay. Does your character go to school?
No.
Okay. Has your character been in a movie?
Yes. Listeners, I'm looking at Jan very quizzically.
Was your character animated?
No. At any point in time were they animated, or just to begin with? Clarify, please.
We're moving on. Is your character a villain or a bad guy?
No.
Okay.
But I'm still hung up on the animation question.
Let's move on. Has your character been into space? It's Star Wars. I think we can say yes.
Yeah.
Does your character die?
No.
Okay. Does your character fight with a stick?
Not at any point that I remember.
Okay. Is your character a princess?
No.
Is your character human?
Yes.
Is your character in Star Wars The Last Jedi?
Yes.
Is your character of Asian descent?
Yes.
Is your character's father alive?
No. Have we narrowed it down by that last question?
Hang on a second. Is it Rose Tico?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, so for the record, that was an online thing, not you, right?
That was...
I thought this would be you were gonna guess it specifically, but this is like can this online thing guess? Is that what that was?
That's what that was.
Okay.
I didn't realize.
Wait. I do have this request of our listeners.
Yeah.
If you were listening to that and you were able to figure out it was Rose earlier than the quiz, please let us know by telling us the timestamp on this podcast when you realized that it was Rose Tico.
Yep.
And let us know, because I'd be really interested. Put it in the comments on YouTube, send it in an email to us on Twitter, whatever you want to do.
Send us your mailing address and we'll send you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the mail.
We'll think of something a little bit better than that, but yeah, we will happily send you something.
I didn't realize until you said, is this an online thing, that maybe some people would have thought that I was guessing that.
Maybe. I was sitting here thinking that's what you were doing, but I didn't know if you were like going and clicking things or like reading through a set of questions and then you had to be like, okay, let me guess it. Interesting. Does my character use a stick? Ray. Duh. Got that one.
But this is an app called Akinator, Akinator, and it's got thousands and thousands of characters in there from across all different types of things. And we tested it out a few times today, and it got it every time.
Can you send that to me? I really want to play with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to try to stump it.
And I was trying to see like how deep it could go with Star Wars characters, and there was a few that like the first one that I tried that wasn't a main character was General Grievous, and it got there really quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Oh man, there is a database where it's just like these are the things that we know about this character, and we can back into them all pretty
Yeah.
easy. There's probably I wonder what the quickest one that you could get to is.
Oh, I don't know. That's a
That'll
good
be
question.
the challenge.
Yeah.
Let's play that again, and let's see how many questions it takes for it to get to
Don't tell me.
certain ones.
You want to do it now?
For another one?
Yeah.
All right, one more. Let's do one more.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So you have your character in mind.
Boom, got it. Go.
You got it? Okay.
This is a little bit deeper cut.
Okay. Is the character female?
No.
Is it an anime character? We'll move on from that. Does the character have human skin?
No.
Okay. Is it an animal of some kind?
No.
Did your character first appear in a video game? I'm guessing no.
No.
Does your character stand on two legs?
Yes.
Okay. Is your character what you would consider short?
No.
Is your character evil?
Define evil. Yes. Let's just say yes.
Yeah, okay.
Nefarious.
Oh, okay. Is your character related to Marvel Comics? We'll say no.
No.
Is your character robotic?
No.
Does your character have horns?
No.
Does your character have powers?
No. I'm really pushing it to the limit on this one, maybe?
Is your character a bounty hunter?
Yes.
Has your character ever died in a movie?
Yes.
Did your character wear a helmet?
No?
No. Did your character get shot?
Yes. Listeners, where are we?
I have to buy the app to see if it got it.
What?
Yeah, I've used up my free plays. Who was it?
Greedo.
Oh, okay. It might have.
It was getting very close with some of those questions.
Yeah, it might have gotten it.
Yeah.
I guess we'll
How
never
much is
know.
the app?
What's that?
How much is the app?
I think it's $3.99.
Sounds great. I'll get it.
All right.
And we'll try this again next time.
Yep.
You used to play your free attempts.
Well, you have to. It's like a lot of the other apps. You have to watch videos to be able to unlock more uses, and it's not like I don't want to watch, ads for really cheesy like 8-bit video games I can play on my phone.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, I don't want to revisit my childhood that much.
Right. Or Candy Crush or whatever's,
Yeah,
taking up
seriously.
people's times these days. But that's kind of a fun game, isn't it?
That was
you did
fun.
a good job with it.
We're going to have to play that a little bit more. Let's move on to our first segment, though,
Let's do it.
which is news from across the galaxy.
Pew, pew.
I thought you were going to keep saying that with me. We were going to try to say it at the exact same time.
We emphasized and underlined the word news in it.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like, our bros at BROAXIUM, Chris and Dan, who are like trying to always do the punch at the same time,
Yep.
virtually, though.
Which they do a good job of.
Every time they nail it.
You know
they're
what else
awesome.
they do really well?
What's that?
They don't film the intros to their quick shots together. So they're in separate places, but they do a good job of like when news anchors look at each other
Yeah,
and sort of turn to the side.
Yeah.
They do that even though they're not in the same space together.
that's true.
It's a nice touch.
It's the little things.
It's the little things that they get right that makes me a big, big fan.
I like that. And speaking of little things, we got little nuggets of news this week.
Yeah.
Lots of little nuggets. Nothing really big.
Nothing
Nothing
big.
earth-shattering. Because we are waiting for something to come
Mm-hmm.
from Lucasfilm on May 4th. They always do something. There's always some announcement or something to drop. So May 4th is coming up in a week-ish, right? I don't even know what day it is anymore of the week. And what do we expect? We don't know what Lucasfilm's got up its sleeve. There's some things that we can probably speculate as to what they're going to do. I'm going to throw my guess out for Andor. Maybe they're going to do some sort of Andor special feature.
Cool.
Maybe it's a trailer, a little teaser. They've been filming for a while. They're currently I think they were just in Essex in England, and now they're on to Lancashire. So
They're 6 or 7 months into it. They've got something to work with at this point.
so maybe they throw us a little teaser.
Yep.
Kind of like they did with The Mandalorian when it was filming at the very beginning,
Yep.
And they're showing us footage from the volume or something. So maybe we'll get something like that. We're obviously going to get the Bad Batch,
Yep.
right?
That's confirmed.
Right. We know that's dropping on that day. And I'm going to guess that the next episode will drop that Friday. So listeners, if you want to hear our thoughts, reactions to everything on that, we're going to include it as part of our news segment for the next episode.
Cool.
And keep talking about that. So be on the lookout for that. But I don't know what else is going to come on May 4th.
So I think we can assume that we're going to get maybe a couple of other things, and nobody really knows for sure. And we're always surprised by something on May the 4th, but it could be that we get a little bit more of the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh yeah,
Which we were talking before we turned the microphones on. One of the things that I think is a good general rule of thumb is if there's something that's going to come out before the next May the 4th, maybe you get something on this May the 4th. And we know that the Book of Boba Fett's coming at the end of this year, so maybe they'll tease a little bit more.
I like that. I would love to see something from that, even if it's just behind the scene footage again.
Yep.
That's cool.
Maybe so people are speculating this. I think it's a stretch. Maybe something for The Mandalorian season 3. Probably wouldn't be footage, but maybe like a poster or some cover art for season 3.
Yeah, maybe. That's
Kind of a
good
stretch.
point. Something else that we'll probably get from Lucasfilm or some like merchandise announcements or something too.
Toys. Yeah.
Something if you want to add to your collection that's probably already bursting at the seams anyway.
That's a good point. We're talking about like TV and film content, but
Yeah.
there's going to be
it
a
could
lot
be
of toys.
Bad Batch related, right?
Yep. Good call. People are speculating that Star Wars Detours is going to drop on May the 4th. And if you haven't heard of this, this is the Seth Green created comedy series, an animated comedy series of Star Wars stuff. Seth Green, obviously the guy behind Robot Chicken and a bunch of other kind of like late 90s, early 2000 comedy classics. But they're speculating, and I don't know where they get this, but they're speculating that there's 2 seasons already like in the can, as they say, and that they're just going to drop all of them on May the 4th. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
The one other thing that I really hope is true, but is, again, tough to say because it's speculation, but some people seem to think that there's enough data to suggest that this is actually going to happen, is The Mandalorian, the video game.
Yeah, that is something I'd feel like we haven't heard enough about, so maybe there's going to be an announcement.
Maybe
Like,
there's
it's
going to
all-
be an announcement, but here's what this is based on. So there's a guy named Phil Spencer who has been known to tease games in a lot of his posts on social media and a lot of the interviews he does. And one of the examples that they used was that he puts stuff, the way that he teases stuff is he puts it behind him, like on a shelf. He'll plant something.
Yeah,
And then
that's
people
cool.
go crazy, which I think is like a really good move. It's a great way to
totally.
get people talking.
Yeah.
So
What's
like
going to
whatever,
be on the shelf for him today?
yeah. So like whatever the latest Xbox is, like he put that on the shelf behind him and did an interview, and then like they announced it not too long after that.
Interesting. Okay.
But recently, people are going crazy because he put a Mandalorian Funko behind him that was never there before when he was talking about some new video games that might be coming out.
Which that could just be like he had nothing to announce or tease, so he just threw a Mandalorian back there,
Yep.
right?
Yep. But
Has
this,
that happened in his show before? He's like, I have nothing to tease, so this is going to go back here today.
probably like he probably puts like a picture of his family, and people are like, "New family coming, here we go."
He's going to have a baby.
But like, I think this just goes to show that people really are like, people love the idea of a Mandalorian video game. People are like, "Give me that."
Yeah.
So people see anything that might hint that that's the case, that's coming, and people go crazy and speculate. But
Well, it feels like we have this announcement, right, about video games and Lucasfilm games coming to be, and not much since then. So
Yeah.
it feels like there's got to be some things brewing, and we need to know what that is. So it could be that we're going to get some announcements in that
be.
realm
Could
soon.
be.
I mean, this is a big day for Star Wars fans. We're going to get something good, and we're going to love it. Some may not, but there will be something for everyone here.
Yeah.
So hold on, wait another few days. We will find out.
everybody relax.
Now, the one thing we know we can look forward to is the Bad Batch.
Yep.
And so a few things about the Bad Batch. One thing I really like that StarWars.com just put out recently was, how can you prepare for the Bad Batch? How can you what can you watch? What?
Oh, like that. I thought like do I have to do stretches or something?
Mental
I have
exercises.
to eat a big breakfast.
Do a little bit of yoga. This one's going to, really throw you off your
Get a
equilibrium.
good night's sleep the night before.
Get a good sleep. Yeah. Don't be one of those that stays up until 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to watch it. We're looking at you, Chris. He's going to chat me about that. Be like, you jerk, or something like that. I need to start doing that. I need to start plugging like little, because Chris and I like to tease each other sometimes.
Yep.
He does it to me really well.
Yeah, I think he called you. What did he call you today?
Oh, he called me something
A
really
dangerous
funny.
individual.
Dangerous, and I
Something.
was like, Danger is my middle name. But that was with Austin Powers, not with whatever that accent was from Texas. I don't know.
Yeah, that was Randy from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, who works at the Pep Boys.
Broken Arrow. We need to go visit there
Yeah.
and find our one fan that's like, why you keep talking about Broken Arrow on your show?
He just throws the wrench down. He's so upset.
at the Pep Boys.
Yeah.
Oh man, our true fans are laughing up a storm right now. Anyone that's new to this is like, what?
Yeah.
What's happening right now?
If you're new to the program, welcome. We're happy to
Yes.
have you here.
Glad to have you.
But Randy, sometimes called Uncle Randy, but Randy is, I guess, the perennial like knucklehead who we call out for being a knucklehead, and we've made up this whole backstory for him. And so
Not a real person.
he's not real. There may be elements of him that are real and based on people who we know.
We need to put that disclaimer that's at the end of every film that's like, this is based off of fictional characters.
Except for you, Randy. This is a portrait of your life.
And I hate you.
I've had it.
This is for stealing my girlfriend.
So,
Back when I was 16. Anyway.
wow. So like last
got
episode, for
serious.
example, we talked about different places we'd like to travel in the galaxy if we were intergalactic tourists. And we talked about like the lousy places we wouldn't want to go or places we would leave Randy.
That was fantastic.
So I think where's Randy? I think he got
Mustafar was the
eaten
last place we left him. I
on
think.
Coruscant or something in a bad neighborhood, or he's on Dagobah
He's probably on like level 5.
sweating.
Yep. Gosh. Okay.
right.
Back
What?
to the Bad Batch.
Yeah. Right?
How can you prepare to watch the Bad Batch? You don't have to do some yoga or some stretches, though. If you do, Jan might be doing that too, so you can join him.
Ask a parent to help you.
Do not do this without guardian supervision. Anyway, you can watch the episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars where the Bad Batch are introduced. You need to stop this. I'm trying
crying.
to get back to serious. Watch those because you get introduced to the characters and maybe, end up liking them. I like that the Star Wars article called out because Tarkin is going to be in this. Maybe you do want to go back and watch. You can watch A New Hope, but it was talking a little bit more about like the Clone War episodes where Tarkin is introduced, where they have to free him from the Citadel. I think that's in season 3, if I'm not mistaken. So, but I'm pretty sure the episode is called The Citadel. So you can watch that series right there. Fennec Shand is going to be in it. So
Yep,
go
very
check
cool.
out The Mandalorian, right? Who else is going to be in it? I feel like there was at least one more.
I don't know, but can I just say?
Saw Gerrera.
Yeah, Saw.
Yeah, go and look
good
at some of the
call.
Saw
What a
Gerrera
great
episodes,
character.
also in Clone Wars, and I think that's season 4.
What a great character. So I saw. So I follow a couple of different Polish language Star Wars fan Facebook pages, and
That's a mouthful.
yeah, and I saw the trailer for Bad Batch, but the Polish language version.
Okay.
And sometimes this stuff gets released in other markets and it's just subtitled or whatever, or maybe the quality of the overdubbing is not what you expect it to be. Like this looks really, really good.
Did they call it something really funny like the unripened bunch?
I got to go back and look. The unripened bunch.
I don't know. Like, does it not translate Bad Batch very well?
It probably doesn't translate exactly. It's probably something really funny.
Yeah.
Homework for me. I'll go look and I'll tweet about it or something. Whatever.
Me no want, or what was that?
Do not want
Do not want.
the backstroke of the West.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you'll have to tell me about that though.
But I think they put a lot of love into making it consumable across different markets. And so if you're a fan in Japan, you're probably going to get a really good Japanese overdubbed version that works really well. And the sound is great and it doesn't sound tinny or sort of like weirdly tuned or something because somebody's just talking over the original track. Like they're making this sound really, really good for each different market it's going to go into.
tinny?
Tinny.
What's tinny?
Tinny, like a metallic sounding, like a little bit like a cheap.
Oh, like
recording.
Randy dropping his wrench in the Pep Boys shop.
Randy dropping that wrench. He's on his final warning at Pep Boys. He's going to get laid off. He's going to have to go work at Mako.
Mako. Wait, is that worse?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
let's move. All right, one last piece of news while we're sticking with animation.
Now there's a fan who works at Mako who just threw his wrench down. We're better than Pep Boys.
Whatever, man. You don't know. I don't.
We don't at all.
I don't at all. I'm admitting that. I do not have much wisdom for this episode today.
Hey, good transition.
I have one more. I know
Okay.
that would have been great if I didn't have one more little nugget of news.
Carry on.
Matt Lanter decided to spill some beans or some tin this week while he was getting interviewed about something. I don't know.
Okay.
But so Matt Lanter is the voice behind Anakin and all the animated appearances of Anakin.
Yep.
Does some great work. Really sells it. Really sounds like Hayden Christensen in a lot of ways.
Was he the one who was in The Mandalorian
Yes.
as one of the guards on the prison
Yes.
ship?
That is exactly who that is.
Cool.
So now that you can picture him
Yeah.
and see his cameo, he's also very talented in terms of voice acting. And he decided to spill the beans that he is going to be in some animated projects again as Anakin.
Awesome.
Let the speculation begin. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, this is actually him confirming it, so this isn't rumor or anything, unless Lucasfilm is going after him for saying that now. I don't know. It's all behind the scenes stuff. But what could he be in? Maybe he's going to be in a couple episodes of The Bad Batch.
Could
So
be.
maybe we'll get some Anakin there, which would be as Darth Vader at that point, is my guess, given the time period. Maybe they're going to roll back the clock even further before the Clone Wars. Maybe we'll see him as a Padawan with Obi-Wan Kenobi and James Arnold Taylor, who's also an amazing voice actor, is going to come back and do Obi-Wan. I don't know. What does he mean by that? I mean, obviously they're going to still do animation for Star Wars. We're going to continue getting that. It's getting more and more popular, I feel. So, but what are we going to get?
I don't know.
Anyway, on that note, do you have anything to add there?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. I'm excited.
Okay. Cool. How about we talk about segment 2, which is
Segment 2 is more to the story.
we have to figure out some sound effects for that one.
Yeah, I don't know if something blows up at the end or what, but it's thank you.
Yeah, there we go.
It's more to the story time. So how would you kind of tee up what this dialogue is going to be about, knowing, and full disclaimer, it's going to go all over the place, but it's going to center around some themes. It's going to center around the themes of life lessons and true wisdom from Star Wars. But how would you kind of tee it up?
I think George Lucas had, when he created Star Wars originally with A New Hope, he had the hero's journey in mind, and he had something that he wanted to teach us through there about the hero and about what a true hero looks like. This unassuming character who, goes from just being this guy at a moisture farm and all of a sudden saving the galaxy, right? He had some great things to teach about us there, but I don't feel like Star Wars really got its moral backbone that it's really known for today until Empire, when it introduced Yoda, who's this wise character full of wisdom that has all this 900 years plus of experience that he is sharing now with the hero, that it really starts to get that, I would say, recognition for actually being, very wholesome and teaching, very strong morals and ways to live our life that, it inspires us.
Yeah.
Right? It maybe that's what I'm looking for. Inspiring, right?
Okay.
And to me, growing up, I mean, I love Lord of the Rings, which is also a very inspiring set of movies, and it came out when I was a teenager and really had an impression on me. And so I really like anything that kind of has a moral to the story that is really deep and really, really solid. And I guess where I'm going with this is, to me, the life lessons is kind of synonymous with Star Wars. I get a lot from it personally when I watch it, and kind of reinvigorates a bit of those lessons that I learned as a child. So I think they leave a very strong impression on people as they grow up with Star Wars, that sticks with them through later in life because of the lessons they pull from it. But that's kind of like my first preamble. What are your thoughts?
That's a good point. I never thought about the fact that the life lessons, the moral lessons, the encouragement that people get from the Star Wars story, I feel like it really solidifies with Empire. I think that's a good point. I never thought about it that way. But again, before the mics came on, we were talking a little bit about life lessons from Star Wars and wisdom from specifically George Lucas and what maybe he has to offer. And the first thing I actually picked out was kind of like a meta piece of wisdom. And Before we jump into that, there's two things that I read about in this book, The World According to Star Wars, about George Lucas that kind of hit home for me that I think rang of wisdom in a way that maybe I didn't expect. But so the first one was when he talked about his big break, and he said that his big break was when he had a falling out with his father. And the falling out with his father was his dad wanted him to follow in his footsteps and work at the office supply store that I think his father owned. I'm not 100% sure about that. And what I am sure about is that George Lucas said, nope, that's not for me.
Yep.
I got to do something different. And apparently they were estranged for a little bit. But it gave him the opportunity to grow into the man that he was supposed to become, that he believed that he should become, which then made him coming back to his dad a more authentic relationship. Like, I'm my true self, you are your true self. And as a result, like, we can have this really deep father-son relationship, which we see play out all across George Lucas's work.
Yeah. I mean, the Padawan and Master, like there's all these father figures, and in some cases, disappointing father figures. Yeah. In Anakin's case, you know, he ended up getting a better relationship with Obi-Wan, but it definitely was rocky. All of Attack of the Clones is about how rocky their relationship is.
Yeah. And there's always a little bit of that, like, disappointment and rockiness. And I've heard George Lucas before talk about how redemption for the father often comes through the son, and how you can see that play out in not just that relationship, but even like Indiana Jones, another George Lucas story.
Yeah.
Sean Connery comes on the scene as Indiana Jones's father, and he's not everything that Indiana Jones wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some disappointment that goes both ways. But through their authentic selves, they sort of build this really genuine relationship. So
yeah,
that jumped out at me real quick. Another one to follow up on that, and then I'll get into the real one. This is just my preamble. I read a quote from George Lucas where they said, you know, what do you want in your tombstone? And do you want to take a guess of what he said?
I can imagine he has no desire to have anything about Star Wars on there.
That's correct.
It would probably be, if he had like creator of Star Wars, he'd cringe in his grave, is my guess. So, follower of dreams and passion.
I like that a lot. I'm going to write that down for my own tombstone. But he just said that he wanted on there that he was a great dad.
Huh.
That's all he wants.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like that's kind of where I've started to reach in life, is like those are the most important things in our life.
Yeah.
Is the role model that we play for others that rely on us, that depend on us, whether that's children, whether that's any moldable mind that we come in contact with as a teacher or something
kids you
in our
mentor,
community.
whatever, coach.
Right, as a coach.
Yeah.
Or even adults who need that support for a little bit.
I think that's so true.
Right? That's what we're here to do, is serve one another.
Yeah.
So very, I think that's very great that he's realized that.
It's deep,
and
right?
It doesn't surprise me at all, because this is the man who created Star Wars. This is not someone who really created it with the idea that he's going to create this whole other galaxy that we're all going to get engrossed in. He created it because he wanted to tell a great story.
He wanted to tell a story about a family.
Yeah, exactly.
And that, and I think that feedback about I want that on my tombstone, that just solidifies that there's been a lot of consistency too throughout the course of his life. And not to say that it hasn't been tested his worldview, but he's been really consistent. So that brings me to my first lesson. Not to say that there aren't nuggets of wisdom there, but
many.
The first chapter of this book is all about how nobody believed in Star Wars. Nobody.
Yeah.
And if you've been a fan long enough, you've probably heard some of the stories about the actors laughing on set.
And wondering, like, is this really going to be... They couldn't take it seriously.
They couldn't take it seriously. There's a quote in here about...
The guy wearing pink shorts holding microphone.
Yeah, that guy. There's a quote from Harrison Ford about how the first time he saw Peter Mayhew in the Chewbacca costume, like, he called his girlfriend or something and said, there's a guy walking around in a dog costume. It's completely ridiculous. Anthony Daniels, there's a quote in here where he said that the word that he used when he was talking to his friends was, he said, this movie is a complete turkey. He said that him and Mark Hamill used to like laugh after a take of like, just, what is this?
What am I saying?
So after the movie's done, they've got a rough cut of it, and George Lucas goes and he shows it to the bigwigs at Fox, and they sit down and they see what they've paid for, which I imagine's got to be like a really tense moment.
Oh yeah, totally.
And you know, he had some commercial success with American Graffiti, but here he is with something that's really bold and new and whatever, and you know, he's showing it to these guys for the first time, and he said that there was not applause and not even a smile, and he left depressed. And I never read this bit, but apparently him and his wife packed up and went to Hawaii the weekend that it premiered.
Oh, no way.
Because he didn't want to be anywhere around to hear about what a train wreck it was. So they literally planned to get out of town to get away from whatever crappy press and criticism was coming their way.
Oh, man.
But so the lesson for me was that nobody believed in a lot of the stuff that was happening here. But yeah, and apparently even George Lucas was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to leave town before this hits. But he believed in the story.
Yeah.
He fundamentally believed that this story will resonate with people, that there's something in here that is truly human, that is going to touch people, and they're going to get it, and it matters. And so the lesson for me in that one was, I think the wisdom is, you don't have to believe in all of it. You don't have to be committed to 100% of all of this is going to go well.
Yeah.
Whatever endeavor it is, you're starting your own business, you're going back to school, you don't have to believe in the totality and the perfection of totality. But if there's something that you can hang on to there where you're like, okay, there's something here. There's something that is honest and good and worthwhile and valuable, and I'm going to lean into that. Good things may happen. And like, I can't imagine what it must have been like when his phone rang in the hotel in Hawaii and people were like, no, you don't
get it. This has been a big success.
Yeah.
Come back, make another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes on to say about how like all these movie theaters across the country were ordering second reels of Star Wars because they wore out the first ones.
Yeah.
And
incredible.
Again, this is a guy who left town.
Yeah.
But he believed in the story. So that's my first lesson.
That's amazing. And maybe it inspired one of the lessons that we get from Yoda in Empire about believing. I mean, there's a lesson, I don't know exactly the quote or anything, but he talks about, in order to do, you must first believe that you can. I mean, he talks about, there's the famous quote, like, Luke says, I don't believe it, after he just pulled the X-Wing out of the swamp, and he goes, and that is why you failed.
Yep.
So there's this whole thing about, he realized, like, you first have to believe that you can do something in order for it to actually happen. Mm-hmm. And there are going to be moments where doubt gets cast on your mind. But, I mean, part of that lesson is first you have to unlearn anything that is going to cause you to doubt.
I was looking at that quote.
Yeah.
As I was preparing for this. I love that one.
It's a great one. And it's a great lesson. It's probably the most iconic shot that's ever shown of Empire is the scene with the X-Wing coming out of the swamp, because of some of those lessons in there. It's just chock full of it, and just 4 minutes of film. It's amazingly done.
Yeah.
But then it's a very simple concept. Believing. We've talked about it forever. But why do we have to keep bringing it up?
Yeah.
And why does it still impact us so much every time that we hear it?
Yeah.
And part of it is how it's told to us. In this way, where a small green puppet, is able to teach a grown man, boy, that he can do anything that he sets his mind to. I mean, he was able to summon the lightsaber earlier in the movie just because, he needed it in that moment. And that's the first time that we ever saw that happen. But we couldn't do it later on when it was a ship. He doubted a little bit. He had to unlearn that. And so that concept of like needing to unlearn things is really interesting, because we do learn to doubt. Well, like everybody, I can imagine all of us right now are doing something that it's like, where did we learn that at one point or another in our life? To doubt, to not believe in ourselves, to, whatever it is, to go down a path that we thought was easier, right? And we're trying to unlearn bad habits all the time, right? It's a very difficult thing to do, but in order to do it, you have to first believe that you can.
Yeah. I love that. And I think that, I've gotten that coaching point before of having to unlearn or like sort of deprogram limiting thoughts. And a lot of people have really limiting thoughts about their career, and limiting thoughts about money. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Of, there's just never going to be enough and I'm not going to be good with it. Things like that.
Definitions of success, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, belief, sometimes you have to remove that barrier
Right.
of some limiting thing that you really hold on to. So I think that one's spot on. I love that one.
Yeah, same. Maybe talk a little bit more about Yoda for a second, if you
Sure.
don't mind, because I think there's a ton of wisdom that we get mostly from Yoda. Like, he is the symbol of wisdom in the entire saga. Even in all the animated stuff, they continue to give us some wisdom, and we'll get to some more of that later. But some of the lessons from Yoda are really tangible, and I feel very applicable to us. There's one that always kind of bothered me, and I had to think a lot about it for this episode, so I want to
Bothered
opine
you?
on this a little bit together. And it's the idea of detachment setting us free. And I'm going to also credit, for some of my preparation, I was watching some YouTube videos and trying to get inspiration and stuff. And so this one came from, I'm going to get this wrong, Einzelgänger. I think it was a German station.
Bro, what are you watching?
I don't know.
Einzelganger?
Yeah, he speaks English, though, and I
Okay.
understood him.
Okay.
But it was a channel. I want to make sure I give credit where it's due.
Yep.
But he kind of had 4 or so in there, and that helped to at least create my initial list. And one of them was this idea of detachment, which I've always thought about, and how we have to train ourselves to let go of everything that we fear to lose. Remember when he tells that to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith? And let's just talk about that for a second. The whole entire purpose of the prequel trilogy is not just to get some great extra wisdom from Yoda. It's to prove Yoda's point through Anakin. The descent to the dark side. This is what happens if you don't let go of those negative emotions, if you continue to let them feel. Like, Anakin's a great person at heart. He works really hard to accentuate those great points about them, but then things happen that just keep bringing those negative emotions back up, and he has a hard time controlling them.
And if you don't mind me interjecting real
Please.
quick, I think another one of the points of the prequels, I think, is called out nicely in this book from a George Lucas quote, where he talks about how there's a lot of parallels between the prequels and the original trilogy in the paths of Luke and Anakin.
Yeah.
But there's one big difference. So Lucas says, Luke is faced with the same issues and practically the same scenes that Anakin is faced with. However, Anakin says yes when Luke says no.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And your ability in those moments to recognize, I need to turn back now, which are sometimes the hardest points to turn back.
Really tough. Yep.
Right? The moment where you're just about to realize that thing that you've been fighting for, even as bad as it might be. This is the thing that you're going for.
Yeah.
Defeating Darth Vader. That's all that's on his mind for such a long time. Right? All he wants to do is defeat him. And in the moment where he finally has the chance to strike him down, he says no.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a very good point.
Yep.
So, but this concept of like detachment, I had to think a lot about it. And I came to the realization that Yoda is right. It's really hard what he tells us. You have to let go of everything that you fear to lose. That includes things like people you love in life.
Mm-hmm.
How can you do that? How can you ask somebody to do that? It seems just asinine, right? But his point is, it isn't to stop loving. It isn't to stop caring. It's to relinquish yourself of that dependency.
Yeah, that like the grasping.
Yeah.
And like I've heard some people say like you like coveting, like greedily grasping for your own ego.
Yeah. And forgetting to maintain a perspective that is, a more healthy perspective on things. I hate to say it this way, if ever you had to, move on from something like that, you need to be able to do that. It creates a lot of anxiety, though, if you don't. And so a lot of anxiety is driven by, I'm no psychologist, by the way, but let's just get that clear. But a lot of anxiety is driven by failing to break away and detach from certain emotions, certain things, fears, especially fears.
Yep.
So that's, I don't know, that's one I really found interesting and have always had a hard time reconciling.
Yeah. I've thought about that one quite a bit. And I think maybe it goes back to the authenticity thing we were talking about where, if you're like grasping onto something out of fear of losing it or because it's a part of your identity, like sometimes people are in relationships because like they're obsessed with the idea of being in a relationship.
Right.
And they're in love with the idea of being in love and so on. And that's like a lot of weird baggage on that other person to just sort of like help to satisfy that for them.
Yeah.
But if you strip all that away, then the one person can really get to know the other person.
Yeah.
And it is really cheesy, but I think it's so true that, if you love something, you got to give it the freedom to walk away. And if it comes back, then, it comes back on its own accord and not because you grasped and didn't let it go.
It's one of my favorite Switchfoot songs. It's actually like the line goes, "Do you love me enough to let me go?" It's a really good one. It's a really good song too.
Deep.
Very deep. Anyway, thanks for entertaining me on that one. So I do have one more Yoda one, and I actually wrote down 8, but I'm going to go to this one specifically because I want to talk about it. And it is the last piece of, in chronological order at least, the last piece of wisdom that we get from Yoda. And it comes up in The Last Jedi. So he appears to Luke in The Last Jedi, which was such a great moment. You remember when that happened? Yeah,
absolutely.
It's panning
I was
across
grinning ear to ear.
Yeah, you're seeing Luke on his way to destroy the tree, set it on fire, which also would have included the Jedi text. And as the camera is panning, you see Yoda in astral form, ghost form, Force ghost form. And you're looking at him like, they did it. They brought him back. This is so exciting, right? And you're so caught up in just the fact that he's back that I almost forgot to listen to what he's teaching you in that moment. And you probably remember the line. I'm going to try to quote it. So he says, "We are what they grow beyond." He's speaking about him training Rey, right? And it is a very disappointing training for Rey. Luke's not really into it. He shut himself off from the Force and everything. It's not going very well. And that's part of the reason why he never saw Yoda up until that point. He shut himself off from the Force. And I thought about the line Yoda says, he goes, "Miss you, have I?" He really did miss him. He couldn't come and see him because he wouldn't open himself up to the Force. And that's
Dude,
sad.
I never thought about that. Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, he delivers this line after, when talking about Rey, about how she already has everything that she needs. And he says, "We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters." What do you make of that first?
We are what they grow beyond.
Yes.
That is the true burden of all masters. We are what they grow beyond. I'm repeating it to buy myself time.
Well, let me help a little bit.
Please.
So what he's saying is, we learn so much in our life, and for whatever reason, the people that we teach go beyond that. And so how are we good teachers and considered to be good teachers if they end up learning more than what we could ever learn? Like, why am I worthy to be your teacher anymore then, is what he's saying. And that's why it's a burden. But you have to be willing to accept that burden as a teacher, that they'll eventually do. I mean, think about it. Like, our generation has grown beyond the generations from 100 years ago.
Yep.
Look at the technology that we have, medicine, things like that.
I think it could also be that, and maybe this is kind of what you're saying, but maybe it's also like the concept that your job as a Jedi Master is sort of to put yourself out of business, in the sense that you'll become obsolete, they will surpass you, and that's just how it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
You're supposed to train up somebody who, like Isaac Newton used to say that, he couldn't take credit because he was standing on the shoulders of giants. Like you are the shoulders that they will stand on.
Yeah.
And then somebody will stand on their shoulders and so on. And then you're sort of just, kind of lost in the history, but the impact that you have obviously lives on, but you become sort of obsolete in the process of training them up. So yeah, I guess, and if you know that's coming, if you know that the Padawan becomes the master and then the master kind of falls away, then yeah, that's a burden to carry.
It is quite the burden. And to be fair, Yoda does explain that a little bit more before he even delivers that line, so you get what he means by the time he says that, because he goes through a list of things. He talks about, like, hey, we pass on all that we know: strength, mastery, weakness, folly, failure. Yes, failure. I think that's like kind of how he delivers it even. And he says the greatest teacher failure is. And that's kind of relating to that moment of how he feels like he's failed Rey and everything. And it got me thinking, when did Yoda finally learn that lesson? And he actually says it in Revenge of the Sith, right? When he doesn't defeat Palpatine, he says, "Failed I have." And that's when he decides to exile himself
Yeah.
because of his failure. But still, who's the one that taught him that failure? Who's the Padawan that surpassed him? Any guesses? I mean, he's had so many Padawans his whole entire life. He's 900 years old.
Yeah, and it could just be...
Dooku was his last one.
It could just be all the introspection from across the centuries of... well, I think, it must be really interesting to be a sentient being that lives that long. Because, like,
Yeah.
we've talked before about Clayton Christensen, and who's unfortunately now a deceased Harvard Business School professor who writes a lot about life, and I would highly recommend his books. But one of his things was basically playing the long game. When you're raising kids, you don't know how they turn out for a couple of decades, but you're working constantly to do stuff with your kids and try to raise them up in the right way. But you don't really know until they're like in their early 20s if you've done a good job. If you're a sentient being that lives 900 plus years, and you have Padawans who are of all different from all different planets and life forms and whatever, you probably see how they all turn out.
Yeah.
You probably see every mistake that you've made come to life in a Jedi Master who has some flaws.
Yep.
And that's got to add up over time
Oh, yeah.
to probably be like psychologically punishing almost to live long enough to see all of the fallout of all of your bad lessons or your misunderstandings or whatever.
But who cares? He's got another 100+ years to live.
True.
He just continues to readjust and make some changes until he's mastered literally everything that he could possibly master.
And maybe that's how he can train Luke so quickly.
Maybe
Maybe it's like, look, I've been doing this for 1,000 years.
a long time now.
I know what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Just do this.
I have an answer to that question though,
Yeah.
and it's Qui-Gon. And this shows how important Qui-Gon is to the story. And there's all these theories about Qui-Gon being one of the most important central features and characters in Star Wars. And I do
think
not
that's
disagree.
true.
I agree. And part of it is because of this. Here's this guy that wasn't his last Padawan, but was the Padawan of his last Padawan. Okay. Because Qui-Gon was the Padawan to Dooku. And Dooku was Yoda's Padawan.
Yep.
And he comes in and he doesn't want to be on the Jedi Council. He's completely beyond what they represent. And Yoda's 900 years of experience go, why? What are you talking about? This is the pinnacle of achievement in this life, to be a master and sit on the council. And you don't want that? How is that possible?
Yeah.
And then he goes to achieve something that Yoda hasn't. And he achieves immortality by being able to manifest himself back after he's gone. And Yoda's perplexed by that. We get a whole segment of Clone Wars that deals with how Yoda learns to come back after life and kind of ties that little lesson in a knot. So I think he learned that lesson from Qui-Gon.
I like that.
That's my theory.
I like that.
And then one last thing on this. Brian Johnson's genius to finish the arc of Yoda by bringing him back in The Last Jedi so that you could see himself manifest himself as a Force ghost, which you do see in Return of the Jedi, right? But you just get a little quick glimpse of it. But to bring him back and teach him that final lesson that he got from Qui-Gon.
Yeah. I love that.
To me, that's masterful. I'm done talking.
Brilliant. So I have one from Return of the Jedi.
Sweet.
So
I segued for you and didn't mean to.
yeah, it worked out really nicely. So the quick bit of dialogue between Leia and Luke in Return of the Jedi, where Leia says, "But why must you confront him?" And
Okay.
Luke says, "Because there's good in him. I felt it."
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
And I think, the thing that I take away from that is, and maybe it sort of ties into Rose Tico, who we were talking about in the beginning of this, and her line about, we fight to save what we love and not to defeat what we hate. I'm
Love that
butchering
line.
it, but it's something like that, right?
Yep.
That's the gist. And I think that, to me, the lesson there is that the confrontation is often worth it, and the uphill battle is often worth it, if there's an opportunity to release some good into the world.
Yeah.
Whether it is to release the good in a person, of confronting them and whatever is not good about them to get them back on the right track, or taking a kid who's having a lot of problems in school and is acting out and helping him out and releasing the good in him or her. I think that one of the things that I love about Star Wars is that moment of somebody recognizing the value in another person who is one of the worst villains in the history of cinema. But they say, no, I feel something. There's something in there, and I'm going to run at it. And I'm going to try to, at my own personal risk, release that good into the world.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think has real wisdom to it, because I think people feel that oftentimes, but then don't do that thing. They aren't willing to confront it.
Yep.
They aren't willing to run head on at something that could be ultimately good if they're willing to face it, for fear of that confrontation or whatever might come ahead, and for fear of personal at their own personal risk or whatever. But that's one that, like, I think that I have to kind of call that out myself sometimes. Of nope, I need to have this conflict, because ultimately there's some good on the other end of it, and not avoid it. And I don't think that's exactly what Luke was thinking. I think he saw something that others didn't, and decided that he was going to run at it.
He was going to face it head on. It was a conflict. It was, how do I redeem my father who has done some terrible things?
Mm-hmm.
But I sense something there. I do. So how do I'm going to try to figure this out for him.
Yeah.
For the sake of my father, and maybe even for my own sake. And he'll get his own version of peace, right? Someone who's never known his father finally discovers who he is. And instead of hating him, instead of worrying that his destiny is similar to his, he decides that he's going to face it, even though it likely could result in him fulfilling that destiny.
Yeah. And you just said something in there I think is really important, and that is just sort of recognizing that even though he's done a lot of terrible things, that maybe he's worthy of redemption.
Right.
That maybe maybe that little bit of good is enough, that it's worth unlocking, and that maybe he can be, Anakin again rather than Darth Vader.
Yeah. And thank goodness he did. Well, not only because he does redeem him, but I don't know if the prequel trilogy or anything that we got from that era would have been as good if we didn't.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Because they plant the seeds of, like, look at all the good in him.
Yeah.
He really was a good guy with just a lot of flaws. And
he
really
could cut a pear with a floating knife.
Yeah. He's got some great talents, that's for sure.
Yep. He was great at picnics.
Even. What?
He was great at picnics.
Yeah, he was. But not so great at government.
Nah.
Yeah, he didn't really get that very much. He should have left that one to Padme.
But yeah, but I think you're right. Darth Vader is that little kid on Tatooine.
He is, in so many ways.
Harmless little kid who wants to just, get in the pod race and all that stuff, and, wants to help his mom. And, ultimately at his core of his being, that's who he is. It's the same person.
But the conflicts in life that he faces, which are deep, difficult, dark, a ton of other words that probably start with D.
Yeah.
And he faces them all as best as he can, but every one is just a little bit harder. And you come to find out it's all kind of manufactured by the Grandmaster puppet Palps.
Joey Palps.
Mr. Palps.
Friend Palpatine. No, Pal Friend Patine.
Pal Friend Patine? Yeah, he's anything but a pal or a friend. But but yeah, he's fabricating all these really difficult events just to unhinge him.
Mm-hmm.
And it works.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It's just, that's the kind of stuff that makes the rewatch value of Star Wars so high.
Yeah.
Just go back and pick those things apart.
All these embedded stories.
Yeah.
Totally agree. One of the other things that I did in preparation for this, and speaking of that era, was go through all the lists of the Clone Wars. So again, Dave Filoni gets this. Filoni, the man behind all the animation series, Mandalorian with Jon Favreau. He's been, forefront of Star Wars for a long time. People love him, and it's because he gets Star Wars, and this is another proof of it. At the beginning of all the Clone Wars episodes, which I think was like his first job, basically with Lucasfilms, like create this series for us, right? And he decided that.
What was your first job?
Huh?
What was your first job?
Mowing lawns.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was not that intellectual then.
I worked at McDonald's.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
We all need to start out somewhere.
Yep.
Right. I don't know if I've made it even yet with the jobs that I have.
Not to say that was Filoni's first job ever.
No.
He
No.
probably did something. He was probably employed somewhere else before, but like
I
that
need
was
to
his
look into
first
that.
big job, and he nailed it.
Yeah, totally did. But one of the things I love about Clone Wars is that he decided, all right, we're not going to do an opening crawl at the beginning of this. He's going to do like a narrative story to kind of catch you up on where they are in the events of the Clone Wars. But he puts a little title card out there, and the title card has just a little nugget of wisdom.
It's like a fortune cookie.
It is. It's like a fortune cookie, but one that's worth opening,
Yeah.
right? And doesn't leave a bitter taste in your mouth.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly the opposite of a fortune cookie, except for the little piece of paper that tells you something in it. So yeah, I mean, I wrote down some of my favorites. There's 129 of these things.
Wow.
There's a lot of them. That's a lot of wisdom to try to
I
impart.
mean, I feel like I knew how many Clone Wars episodes there were, but I never stopped to think that they all had that like little encouraging slogan at the beginning or that tidbit of wisdom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's some good, but they all do, except for the last 4 episodes. That's it. And there's some really good ones, like easy is the path to wisdom for those not blinded by ego.
Ooh.
Deep.
Yeah.
Really deep. Should I do another one?
Yeah, keep going.
Let's see. You hold on to your friends by keeping your heart a little softer than your head.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Who do you think wrote these? Was it the writers of each episode? Was it Filoni himself? Like, was it?
I don't know. And here's the thing I love about it. Then he goes to teach you that little nugget while you watch the episode.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, or the whole string through the story.
Yep.
So, for example, one of my other favorites is the first step to correcting a mistake is patience. Okay. Let me think about that. Let me see how that works. Oh, you're going to show me how it works? Sweet. So that one was tied to the Children of the Force, which is a very dark episode. It's one where, so Cad Bane is in it. Cad Bane has stolen some information from a holocron that Anakin was forced to open.
Was
so that
this
he
one
could
of one of the
save
first
Ahsoka.
Cad Bane episodes?
I think it was, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
it was
remember
right
this.
at the beginning of season 2, so right after
Yeah.
you were introduced to him. And he's a great character. People love him. I love him. But so he gets away with this knowledge, and it's knowledge of the location of thousands of Force children
Yeah, I remember this.
for the nefarious intentions of Palpatine at the time. And so he's going around kidnapping them, and of course Anakin's feeling guilty. It's his mistake. It's his. He's the one who opened the holocron for Cad Bane to get this knowledge to begin with. And so it shows him having patience so that he stops, meditates for a little bit, and thinks. And the funny thing is, guess where the lesson comes from?
Where?
Palpatine.
Ooh.
Palpatine gives him the lessons of patience. And it's like, I'm sure if you're patient, you'll figure it out.
Ooh.
By the way, he's the one behind all this. And like, good job, Palpatine. You screwed that one up.
Wow.
Maybe intentionally. Who knows? He's always 10 steps ahead of everybody.
Yep.
But yeah, so he eventually shows you how he learns that one, which I think is interesting.
Cool.
Anyway, I got a ton more, but we could be here all night.
Yeah, hit me with a couple more.
Okay. Evil is not born, it is taught.
Oh. Huh.
I tend to agree. You're not born evil. Would you ever say that any child that you've seen is evil?
Well, have you ever been to the mall?
Yes. I thought you were going to say, have you ever met your kids?
No, your kids are lovely.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Okay, I like that one. I like that one.
A great student is what the teacher hopes to be.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
I remember I had a math teacher who said that, like, one of the first days I had him, I think this was in high school. He said that the day that I stop learning from you guys is the day I retire.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a math teacher too.
Yeah.
Not a philosophy teacher or something, a math
No.
teacher.
No,
Like,
he's always challenging us to like show him new ways to solve problems and think about different things, and
yeah.
it's cool.
It's not just follow what the equation in the book says.
Yeah.
There's actual problem solving you have to do with math. I can attest to that. Cool. I like that. Humility is the only defense against humiliation.
Wow.
Sit on that one.
Wow.
That's a good one, right?
That's a good one.
All right. I'll give you one more.
Let's end with some fireworks here. Hit me with the big one.
How about
Give me that wisdom.
morality separates heroes from villains?
Yeah.
Some good stuff there, though.
It's really good stuff. And to think that they came up with, well over 100 of those is pretty awesome.
And I suggest going back as you're watching the episodes and trying to learn some of that wisdom. to see where it's taught throughout the episode.
Yeah.
Remember what it said at the beginning and then to look for it.
Love
Because
it.
it's there. It's always there.
Excellent.
Do you have anything else from your book?
I got nothing else.
Should we end?
I think we should wrap up. I think we should invite people to. So first and foremost, thank you for listening. As always, we genuinely appreciate that you spent any time with us at all. And if you've made it this far in the episode, I'm just going to assume that you've fallen asleep. So I'll talk a little more quietly. But on all seriousness, thank you so much for listening. We really, really, really appreciate it. Please give us a follow on Twitter if you're on the Twitters. We're at Star Bros Podcast. We're also on Facebook, the Star Bros Podcast. You can send us an email. So if there's a piece of like Star Wars wisdom that you feel like you've really gotten something out of and kind of carried with you from the saga or from wherever else in Star Wars, send us an email, thestarbrospodcast@gmail.com, and check us out on YouTube on the BROAXIUM YouTube channel, where you can find our episodes of some of our past shows, but also a ton of great content from our fellow bro hosts who preview the upcoming Star Wars comics and a bunch of other cool stuff. So thank you. Smash that subscribe button, leave a review, let us know how we're doing, and tell us what you want to hear more about in the future. So my next question is, what's our next episode going to be about?
So next time we get together, fellow fans of the podcast and of Star Wars, both, we are going to dive a little bit deeper into some characters. Now, if you recall, probably like our 6th episode or something like that, 3 Heroes in a Slug, go and check it out. It's a pretty good one.
It's a good one.
We talk about a profile of a few of our favorite, more secondary characters, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to do that again, but this time we're going to do kind of secondary villains.
All bad guys.
The bad ones. But we're going to avoid the main ones. I'm not talking about Palpatine, Vader. They need their own episodes just on them. So we're not going to do that. Multiple episodes, potentially. How many times have we talked about Joey Palps?
Yep. Many.
Ever since the first episode when we found out that Bing got his name as Joseph Palp. Joey. So we're going to talk about some of those secondary villains. Think of your Hux, your Krennic, your...
the bounty hunters.
Boba Fett, you know. Lots of good anti-heroes out there that we can talk about. So we're going to showcase a few of our favorite ones and hope that you'll join us for that wonderful experience.
Consider this your invite.
Don't. It's not going to get lost in the mail because we didn't send it in the mail. We just told you.
We'll keep calling.
Yeah. Every 2 weeks we release episodes. You know where we are.
Yep.
So, yeah. What else do we got to do?
I think there's one more thing that I think you got to say.
No, it's your turn this time, man.
It's my turn?
Yeah.
There's one more thing.
Yeah.
Or does Randy have to say it?
Let's make Randy say it. What does Randy saying it sound like?
It's a trap!
That's it. Thank you, Randy.
On May, Revenge of the Fifth brings on the next huge Star Wars comics crossover, War of the Bounty Hunters. In this series, we learn that Boba Fett had to take a detour or two before getting Han Solo to Jabba on Tatooine, because somebody stole Han and Carbonite.
And to preview this epic crossover for you, we decided to do an epic crossover of our own. All the main issues of this series will be guest hosted by some of our favorite people in the Star Wars community. Starting off with the War of the Bounty Hunters Alpha, a prelude to the series, will be previewed by Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained, with the rest of the main issues previewed by
Matt Grant and Sean Fallon from Blue Bantha Milk Co.,
Maria and Raven from Sisters with Sabers,
Claire Stribling from Kessel Run Transmissions and the Imperial Senate podcast,
Pete Fletzer from Around the Galaxy,
Emrys
and Luthien
from Girls with Sabers,
Jeff McGee from Star Wars Splash Page Podcast,
and more to be announced later.